Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Fleming and I am uploading this is the first video in my forgiveness series. So I have a series of videos that are going to be based on forgiveness. So this is Forgiveness 1, we'll just call it Forgiveness 1. And the next video will be Forgiveness 2. And so we'll just go forth from there. But what I would like to address now are some myths that there are about forgiveness, because there are a lot of different beliefs on forgiveness. And so I have traveled around and speaking to people, about forgiveness. And so based on the conversations that I had with some of my brothers and sisters about the topic of forgiveness, I have compiled some information. So one myth on forgiveness, or I should say in particular as far as this sense, unforgiveness is, I am hurting the other person when I refuse to forgive. Okay, now, forgiveness, my brothers and sisters, is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for yourself. It is defined as an act of self-love. So when one is not willing to forgive, one would possibly want to ask themselves certain questions as far as why they are unwilling to forgive. One question is, do I love myself? That is very important, because some of us brothers and sisters do not love ourselves. Some of us brothers and sisters do not feel, because we don't love ourselves, we feel that we're not worthy of forgiveness or anything else that is of God. Some of us have condemned ourselves. Some of us are in a process where we feel we need to punish ourselves. And so we have our own, we put forth our own punishing intent towards ourselves. I mean, it goes very, very deep, okay? Sometimes it is not even on a conscious level. Sometimes it is the subconscious, and you will see a series of destructive behavior exhibited by an individual who believes subconsciously that they are not worthy of love, that they are not worthy of forgiveness, that they are not worthy of the abundance and blessings of God and the kingdom. So there are some. So a good question to ask yourself is, do I love myself? For if you love yourself, then forgiveness is the perfect affirmation, because it is an act of self-love. It is an act of saying, I choose not to carry this any longer. Or if it is just something that recently occurred, it is an act of saying, I choose not to carry this. So it is an act of self-love. Now, back to, I am hurting the other person when I refuse to forgive. Now, my brothers and sisters, unless this other person is someone who has to see you every day, like, for example, your spouse or your partner, unless it is someone who you have constant daily interaction with, or maybe someone who is a coworker, someone that works with you, this person is not going to know that you harbor such resentment against them. This person is going to go on with their life as usual. They are going to enjoy the fulfillment of life. They are going to completely forget about what it is that you are harboring against them. So in your thinking that you somehow have them as a prisoner, like In your mind, you can see them in a prison that you have created for them. And daily you go to them to feed them bread and water and look at them and to torture them and tell them, now, do you see why why you are not forgiven? That this is the person that is in that cage, that is in that prison. Look in the mirror. It is you. It is not the person that you are holding in your mind as the enemy. It is not that person. You are keeping yourself in prison, my brothers and sisters. So the question, do I love myself, is essential. It is essential in determining our course of action from that point. Now, if your answer is I don't love myself, then forgiveness is necessary, because you are love. Love made you. You are love, and yet you do not know yourself. That's all that means. You are love who does not know itself. That's about it. So, from that standpoint, then forgiveness is still necessary in order to remove the blocks to love presence. Because as you forgive, you will begin to feel love's presence. You will literally feel, a lightening of a burden. Once you forgive, once you truly let something go, you will feel this lightening of a burden that you didn't even know you were carrying. You had no idea you were carrying this until it is released, and you feel the freedom that comes from the releasing. And then there is a sense of peace. This is the Comforter. This is the Holy Spirit, which is sure to come once you have lightened that load. It is a sense of peace that overcomes you and fills you. So this is very important. So I am hurting the other person when I refuse to forgive. That is another false belief on top of many false beliefs that we have assimilated into our consciousness. Okay. Another forgiveness myth. If I forgive you, you better not do that again. Okay. My brothers and sisters, this is not forgiveness. For true forgiveness is the complete release of anything that you carry with you against your brother or sister. Forgiveness's intent is to join us, is to unite us. This is not forgiveness. This is some type of conditional love type thing, another thing that has been created by the ego, that has been created by fear, okay, in keeping us divided and separated. This is not an example of forgiveness. So let's move on to the next. Another myth about forgiveness. Forgiveness is letting the other person off the hook. Forgiveness is letting the other person off the hook. Okay. There are many people that refuse to forgive because they believe that in forgiving, they will be letting the other person off the hook. They will be giving the other person a pass. They will be saying that whatever you did to me is okay. This is how they are perceiving it. Whatever you did to me is okay if I forgive you. So therefore, I choose not to forgive you because it was not okay. It was not okay when you hurt me. It was not okay when you abused me. It was not okay when you molested me. It was not okay when you stole from me. Okay? So I do not forgive you because it was not okay. My brothers and sisters, forgiveness is an act of self-love. It is an act of saying, again, I choose not to carry this. It is an act of saying this unhealthy energy, this toxic energy that leads to disease, that leads to a whole slew of fear-based symptoms, anxiety, and fear and depression and all sorts of things. And now I have to go and pay a psychotherapist to look through all of these muddied waters and this swamp that I have created, in order to help me make some sense out of this, when the bottom line is all we really need to do is surrender and forgive. Just let it go. Do not hold on to this toxic energy. Do not hold on to this negative energy. Do not hold on to anything that is not of love. Release it. We are love. We are created in the image and likeness of love. We are created to be a creator. That is the true purpose. And our function as dictated or defined by A Course in Miracles is to forgive. The reason why we are here is because we forgot who we were, which is why we are asleep. And any pathway to awakening has to go through forgiveness. Forgiveness is the pathway to our salvation. Forgiveness is the pathway to joy. The forgiveness is the pathway to us waking or reawakening as the full self-realized Christ. That is what forgiveness is for. Forgiveness is saying, I choose not to carry this any longer. Forgiveness is saying, I choose to remove all blocks to love's presence. I choose to remove all blocks to my presence because I am love. This is what forgiveness means, my brothers and sisters. This is forgiveness. It is not some sort of tit for tat type thing where, if you do this, that is not for forgiveness, and that is not what the purpose of this world is for. The purpose of this world is to relearn who we are. That is why we are here. We are here for a time and experiencing time and space for a time to relearn who we are. At one point, we knew who we were. At one point, we knew well who we were. And then we forgot. And then we forgot, my brothers and sisters. So, I got something from someone else. They were telling me about forgiveness. Forgiveness is saying, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, brothers and sisters, saying that I'm sorry can be a step in the right direction, but it is not forgiveness itself. It is basically reaching out to a brother or sister and apologizing. Now that could be one of the steps for forgiveness, but forgiveness itself is what the individual does to release themselves from the bondage of the illusion that is created that their brother sinned against them or that they sinned against their brother. It is an illusion. There is no sin. There is no such thing as sin. Sin does not exist. It does not exist. This does not mean that you excuse the behavior, okay? This does not mean that, once you have forgiven someone, that now we all join hands and sing Kumbaya. This does not mean that once we have forgiven one another, that we have to then like one another. But this does mean that we love one another. This does mean that we recognize our brother and ourselves as one. This does mean that we see the Christ in our brother as we see the Christ in ourselves. That's what this means. So, let's talk about what happens when we judge. Okay. Now, when we judge, brothers and sisters, we create an energy that is seductive at first because it feels good. It feels good to make ourselves somehow superior to our brother. It feels good to project whatever is within ourselves, whatever guilt is within ourselves, onto someone else so that we can feel that we are innocent, which we really are. See, and that's really what's really interesting, because we really are innocent, but we have our own way of proclaiming our innocence. So our way, through the eyes of fear, of proclaiming our innocence is to project whatever guilt that we are consciously aware of on someone else, or unconsciously aware of on someone else, so that we can feel more innocent, which is our true state anyway. This was what's really the insanity part about it, is because we really are innocent. We really are innocent. But through the eyes of fear, we must project our guilt on someone else in order to be innocent. And what that does, brothers and sisters, because everything is circular, what that does, because we are all one, is then at that point it imprisons us. And so we feel the effect of the imprisonment. It does not mean that love is not there. It does not mean that God is not with us. It just means that we are not aware of God's presence. The more we judge, we put up inhibitors that keep us unaware or blind to God's presence. And so, as we feel unloved, as we feel, because God is love, and when we're aware of love's presence, of God's presence, then we feel love, we feel joyful, we feel happy. As we put up those inhibitors through judging and condemning our brother, and condemning ourselves and judging ourselves and things like that, and when things happen, holding things against one another, we put up those inhibitors and we don't feel love's presence. And when we don't feel love's presence, then we feel fear. Fear is merely the absence of love. And love is everywhere, but if we don't feel it because we are this powerful, we feel the absence. And when we feel the absence, we make decisions based on the absent consciousness of love's presence. So then we become lonely. We get depressed. We feel unworthy. We feel that we're not worth anything. This is what happens when we judge, when we condemn. All right. What happens when we forgive? All right. Let's get to the good stuff. What happens when we forgive is there is an energy that cleans up and removes and dissolves, really. It literally dissolves the inhibitors that we have placed that prevent us from seeing love or feeling love or being aware of love's presence. It dissolves those inhibitors. The more we forgive, the more it dissolves those inhibitors. My master teacher, Jesus the Christ, in the New Testament, several times, as well as even in the Course in Miracles, stated, we forgive 70 times 7. You know, how many times should we forgive? 70 times 7. So that's a whole lot of forgiveness. But each time we forgive, that is what happens, okay? And A Course in Miracles, as well as a number of other texts, A Way of Mastery, state that we literally save 1,000 years of learning that is required just in that one act of forgiveness. In that one act of forgiveness, we can literally save ourselves 1,000 years of learning. So that's, my brothers and sisters, is what happens when we forgive. When we forgive, we dissolve the inhibitors. We remove the things that keep us, that prevent us from being aware of love's presence. Okay. So these are just a few things on forgiveness. I wanted to put this in a video. I When I speak to people in different Course in Miracles groups and anywhere I go, I mean, this is what I say. But at the same time, now this is what I am saying to the community of YouTube as well as anyone else. I am going to have a forgiveness series, and I also want to talk about practical forgiveness, and I'm going to touch on some practical forgiveness right now. Practical forgiveness. Okay, so what is practical forgiveness? Practical forgiveness means that you choose to practice forgiveness. Okay? So, there are many opportunities, my brothers and sisters, to practice forgiveness. Okay? If you have children, there is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. If you have teenagers, there is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. If you work at a place and where you work is less than favorable, maybe the environment is less than favorable, there is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. If you live in a large city and you drive to and from work, okay, and you get caught up in traffic jams, like in Houston, Texas. I live in Houston, Texas. We have a lot of traffic. There's a lot of people that live here. That is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. When you're driving, if someone cuts you off on the freeway, that is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. If you are at a fast food place ordering food, or if you're just at a restaurant ordering food and it takes forever for the food to come, that is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. If you find somebody that is having a bad day, that is an opportunity to practice forgiveness. And the way that we practice forgiveness is we put ourselves then in their shoes and say, when have I too done this? When have I too had a bad day? When have I too crossed or cut somebody off in traffic? When have I too been difficult for my parents, like my teenagers are now? When was I a teenager? And what were the things that I went through? And so when you at that point identify, then you can have a compassion for that person that just a moment ago you didn't have. And so then you forgive it because you speak their language. And that's how the miracle happens. That's how the miracle and that's how you save yourself up to 1,000 years of learning. So can you imagine how wonderful that is? Saving yourself up to 1,000 years of learning, just riding around in traffic, just going through your regular daily routine. It is a practice, my brothers and sisters. It does not have to be when you get the quote unquote big things to forgive, like someone breaking into your home or someone violating you in some way. It does not have to be until we get to that point. All right? There are no big and small things to forgive. It is only how we order it in our mind. It either needs to be forgiven or it doesn't. That's all there is to it, no matter what it is. It does not matter the event. For all events are neutral, my brothers and sisters. They are all neutral. The only thing that makes them not neutral is the energy or the value that we put on each event. So that, my brothers and sisters, is practical forgiveness. I'm going to be speaking a lot about practical forgiveness. All right, a lot about practical forgiveness. Now, my email address, because I'm going to read some emails that have come to me, but my email address is, well, let me give you my email address, well, I got a couple of email addresses. So one of my email addresses is sfleming0227 @gmail.com. Okay, that is one email address, sfleming0227 @gmail.com. Manifestingfromtruth @gmail.com. Manifestingfromtruth @gmail.com is an email address for me. All right. So if you have any questions, if you need an opinion, based on the standpoint of A Course in Miracles and Way of Mastery, a different or fresh perspective, or a fresh perspective of looking at things that's perhaps different from what you have experienced prior, please send me an email and I will read it when I have an opportunity. So one of my emails that I just received is, I have SG, who just received an $8,000 pay cut, which comes to over $600 a month. I had to cut off satellite TV, and I'm cutting back on some other things also, since I am the sole provider of my household. What can I do? Well, SG, the first thing to do is understand that God is our source. Our source is not our job. So, forgiveness first, to help us get into that understanding, that recognition that our source supersedes any earthly source for income. Our source of abundance is God, okay? So we forgive that which prevents us from seeing that God is the source of our supply. We forgive that which prevents us from seeing that, okay? So this is an opportunity to forgive, SG. This is an opportunity to forgive, because you are forgiving the perception of lack that you have. And you have a wonderful opportunity now that you received an $8,000 pay cut, which I completely understand, my sister, does not feel well. It does not feel good at all. I understand. But once forgiveness is completed and you are moving through the eyes of love, from the standpoint of love, you will see things completely different. And then a whole new world of opportunities and abundance will open up to you. So that is my advice. Let's see. All right. Got another letter from LB. Got another email from LB. LBH. Sorry, initials LBH. Sorry about that. My boss has a micromanaging style and it drives my coworkers crazy, but not me. I just do my job and ignore my boss. But I'm getting tired of hearing about it from my coworkers. Any advice? Okay. Well, LBH, my advice would be to forgive. To forgive my perception of my boss being a micromanager. My advice would be to forgive what I am perceiving in my workplace as far as my coworkers. That will be my advice. To introduce the energy of forgiveness into the workplace, and thereby see your workplace over time transformed into a place of harmony, into a place of peace, into a place where your coworkers enjoy and have extreme job satisfaction, are happy at their place of work. You can be that spark. You can be that divine blessing by introducing the energy of forgiveness and forgiving that which you perceive. Because on some level, my sister, that which you perceive is something that is within you. This may be a shared experience with some of your coworkers. Yes, it may be. But the one can impact the many. If there is one that is willing to forgive, they can be a blessing to the many, because that very energy will then expand to all of the people, including the micromanaging boss. So that is my advice. my sister. That is my advice. And so I have one more. And this one is from a brother named RF, with the initials RF. And it is just basically saying that my brother is angry at Donald Trump. Okay, so this particular email, I'm just going to give you the highlights because it's pretty long. Basically, my brother is saying that he is angry with Donald Trump and how Donald Trump has inspired racism, and or how his well, this is what it says anyway, has inspired racism in America, or given new life to it. He talks about he is angry that the Senate won't do anything to keep him in check. It talks about all sorts of things. So, not going to read all of this, but what I will say, and I wanted to save this for last, is that my brother RF, Donald Trump is our brother. Donald Trump is our brother. And if there is something that takes you out of your peace with any brother or sister, that is what we forgive. That is what we forgive. Let me remind you, my brother, Donald Trump does not even know you. So the only one that is actually getting upset right now and keeping themselves in bondage about the behavior of this individual soul that under this incarnation is under the name Donald Trump, who had a purpose, okay, who had a very unique purpose to come into this world, okay, and be a spark for change. But the only person in bondage, my brother, is yourself. And so we must forgive this. We must release it and let it go. If you are able, once you have released this and let this go and am able to see Donald Trump as your brother, then send love to your brother. Send peace to your brother. This is not about political affiliation, my brothers and sisters. That is really the act of separation. That just basically subscribes to separation. Is the political affiliation? Are you black, white, Hispanic? What church do you go to? We'll divide ourselves even more. The bottom line is Donald Trump is our brother. And Donald Trump has a purpose, just like we all have a purpose. Donald Trump is no different from me. Donald Trump is no different from you. He's a person. So, forgiveness is the answer to all of life's challenges. So, this wraps up my first video on forgiveness, and there will be more. There will be more. And so I want to thank you all for joining me today. Thank you. Again, my name is Stephen Fleming, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.